young people came down from all over America to help us after Katrina, about 500. And when they walk out of New Orleans and say, I'm going home and get my degree that I didn't get my master's, we're going to have an empty teaching force. We're going to need teachers. And the day we start paying teachers what we ought to pay them is coming. When things get scarce, you start paying for what they were. So I'm saying this to all of you out there. The next time you see a youngster and you want to send them to Xavier, say, you know, you look good enough to be a teacher. That's part of our future. Now, I'm not going to say what you've already heard. We wrote the book on teaching young people how to do science. But we wrote the book on working anywhere and learning anything you had to learn to be here. It's been such a tribute for me to be in Atlanta, Washington, New York, now in Chicago, and I'll be in Los Angeles, to hear, as you all know, I ask each of you as I could, what you're doing now. It's so reinforcing to know what you mean to America. And yes, God, I say to the people who ask me, do you need black colleges in the future? Absolutely. Absolutely. When would America be had there not been a black college? You tell me. And we've been at this since 1855. So I answer the question. We've come through everything you could imagine, and we're not turning around now. But it's not going to be easy. And so what do we have to do? My message is twofold. We've got to educate these young people. Now, I had a development officer named Clarence Duke. Anybody remember that name? We did events like this, and the word was, it was free to come in, but you had to pay to go out. And what I'm asking you tonight is to invest in these young people for the future of America. And I want to make this very, very clear. When I talk about the disparities, I'm talking about disparities surely that is most hurtful, if you want to put it that way, for minorities, African Americans, Native Americans, Hispanics. But there are more poor people in America who are not black. And somebody's forgotten that those folks are going to the line in the stores with food stamps now. And they're saying, whoa, what's happening to America? Well, we can write the book. Join us. Let's go vote. Let's go vote together. And the future is just that. Let's go vote together. We will change America. But you can't stay home. And I have to tell you something. Those young folks who are yours, sons, your daughters, your nieces, your nephews, and so forth, those who are about 21, 22, and 35, they're not voting. They're not voting. And some of you are just old enough. I'm going to start the first half, and you tell me the second half. A voteless people is a hopeless people. That's the NAACP's motto, and it's still true today. So we can't rest on our laurels. In fact, I worry about whether or not we fully understand how difficult it is in this country for everybody, but for people who are going to bed, children who are going to bed without food, without places to live. For a nation this big, it shouldn't be. Now, I'll answer the question that I'm going to be asked after I speak to those judges. Well, what's your solution? What is the answer to it? Well, the first one is what we've been talking about here all night. The road out of poverty is paved with education. That's the road. That's the road. You remember the quote, no nation that is uneducated was ever free and will never be. You've got to educate these generations. We have lost at least 4 generations of African Americans, Hispanics, because we did not educate them. Now's the time to do that. And the next is the key. We have to distribute the resources to schools that teach young people. We have to distribute the resources equitably. Now, I'm going to give you a little lesson. When I was appointed the authority of Louisiana Recovery Authority after Katrina, I turned this down twice from the Governor Blank. I lost my home. Xavier was out. I was out of my mind when I decided to do this, but I took it. And the governor brought me to the mansion to speak to some legislators. Now, I'm a country boy. I grew up in the country. I was poor. At least they told me I was poor. I didn't know I was poor. My khakis were always pressed. My shirts were pressed and the like. We had to build our own system. I know that, but we built our own system. But these legislators were there, and they're looking at me. They wanted to guess, why did the governor appoint me? Well, she did because I had been through with everybody else so much misery. I ought to be able to come out of Katrina and help Louisiana with what I had learned from people like me. And a legislator raised his hand and said to me, well, Mr. Chairman, how y'all going to distribute this money? I said, we're going to distribute it equitably. Oh, that's okay. Everybody's going to be distributing the money equally. No, I said, I didn't say that. I said, well, what do you mean? I said, we're going to distribute the money equitably. He said, well, that's right, equal. I said, mister, there's a difference between equal and equitable. And I said, I'm going to give you an example, and you do it here now. If I ask these waiters to come and give everybody a full glass of water and pour the water equally, well, I can see these tables. Some folks have drunk half their water, some folks have drunk 75% of it. Some of you have done no drinking at all. They are going to have to pour the water for a full glass equitably. Some of you are going to get a half a glass, some of you are going to get 25%, some of you are going to get nothing because you've got it all. Just apply that to distributing the money in America to poor people, to people who don't have it. And I'm not saying we're going to take the water out of your brother-in-law's glass to pour in yours. Now, that's what the demagogues are saying. No, we can't do that. You will take water from him and pour it in your glass? No. We got enough educational water in this country to pour the water equitably so every child will get a full glass of water. But that's a policy that this country has not come to yet. And I ask you as missionaries, work to improve education any way you are. If you're retired, help the school system. Next, vote. Politicians know one thing: vote. Send those letters and say, you keep acting like this, don't look for me next year. Vote. And the next part of it is, make sure that people get out of this perception that everything is all right. It's not all right. And say to them, we have to, I'm talking affirmative action, that's a different story. I'm talking about when the resources are out there and the federal or state give some schools more money than the others because they need them. I used to say, and I'm going to close it, but not immediately. I'm going to close with saying this. I used to give a lot of talks, as you know, and I used to say, which I thought was pretty true, I'd say, there is no really connection between being smart and being poor. There are a lot of poor people, a lot of them in this room, and I'm standing in one here, who are a little smart, but were poor. And I'd say this all the time. And then I read this research that says, well, if you're poor in America, you live in a poor neighborhood, you go into a poor school, you've got poor teachers, you can't win. You've got to help the neighborhood so you can see what the Bible saw and the rest. We have to make sure that all of those quality of life issues are there. And I want to close in thanking you and say to you, please, 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 whatever you have, whatever you can, think of where you have come from and where these young people need to go and help them. If it's $10, if it's $100, if it's, no matter what it is, give. And I saw in every Xavier student me. And it was easy for me to talk to them because I was talking to myself. I understood the language, I understood where they had come from, and I knew where they wanted to go. I had the pleasure, I told, probably awarding 20,000 degrees in my tenure. I should have awarded 30,000 because only 60% were able to come, and those other 40% didn't. If they had, it would have been 30,000. So let's add another 30,000 out there, because we will need them for this country, and if we don't, we are all in trouble. And remember, partnerships are going to be the answer to the future. Thank you very much.